Welcome to the weekend. I'm Jon Caldara, president of the Independence Institute. You're watching Devil's Advocate. So get used to these two words, Governor Mays. Of course, it's going to happen. We are taping the day after the primaries, and so why not do this? Mike Littwin from the Denver Post, who's you're just having the time of your life today, aren't you?
It's the most fun I've had in years.
In years.
In years. Dan Mays.
Dan Mays. All right, coming over here from Patty Calhoun from Westword. You were at the party last night. You were at Lodo's dancing the Macarena with the Dan Mays party.
I did not make it as far as Lodo's, but I stopped at the blogger party where there were Republicans weeping in their bad margaritas.
And their watered down margaritas. All right, let's go first. You know, you've heard me say it over and over again. Caldara's political axiom number one: there's nothing Republicans can't F up. Last night, I think, was proof positive that. You guys don't seem to understand. Dan Mays can win, can't he?
Can win what?
Governors.
He can win the Republican nomination, apparently, although I'm the most stunned person in the world that he did. I guess after Scott McGinnis.
Why are you stunned?
Well, I mean, Scott McGinnis had to, he had to become a nationwide, known as a plagiarist in order to lose to Dan Mays. And he wasn't just a plagiarist. He also took $300,000 for not doing his own work, and he threw an 82-year-old man under the bus. That Channel 7 interview, that would be the biggest political killer I've ever seen on TV.
It was a thing of beauty. But if there was a message last night, it was this: the Tea Party movement actually has not enough power to win in the general, but they've got enough power to make sure that Ken Buck won and that McGinnis didn't win. I'm certain, and tell me if I'm wrong here, if somebody like Josh Pennery were in the race, he would have walked away with this nomination. Am I wrong on that?
No, I think he would have. If there had been a really good, solid candidate who ran a good campaign, didn't plagiarize, didn't throw 82-year-olds under the bus, I think that person would have made it. What's fascinating is this was going to be the Republican year. The Republicans,
it is still going to be the Republican year.
Well, just where it's going to be the Republican year is the big question, because it's not going to be in the governor's mansion in Colorado. It is astonishing to think about. There was all this time, 2 years to find a candidate, and certainly a year since Ritter decided not to run, that somebody could have stepped forward. So the party could have gotten behind them. They could have dealt with the Tea Party people, been a little more inclusive. But instead, every possible thing went
But they
wrong.
did do that. I mean, that's what they did. They picked Scott McGinnis.
The machine
They cleared the field.
But that wasn't
Josh
because of the Tea
Penry and Tom Tancredo stood arm in arm with the guy and said, "This is our guy. You can trust him, Tea Partiers. He's one of us, even if he isn't. We can pretend he's one of us and move forward to victory." And he then, starting with the elk meat, he then went on to run what will now be remembered as an even worse campaign than Bob Beaupre, and which is really saying something.
I was just mentioning this before we went on. For me, we're getting to the point where normal guys who make a living will never run for office. I mean, Bill Owens did it. You can argue Ritter did it. But Scott McGinnis, not only did he ruin his political career, I believe, I mean, it imploded, but as a corporate lawyer for highbrow law firms, he's got to think about this and go, you know what, my life would have been better if I didn't do any of this. It's going to be hard to get clients.
So you're saying corporate lawyers are normal middle-class people? That's clearly not true. I mean, we've had plenty of corporate lawyers.
I'm saying he's not Dave Leininger. All right, this is not a guy who can put in $10 million of his own money. And so are we stuck with the Michael Bloombergs of the world now? Is that going to be our Republicans?
No, I don't think so. But maybe the people who run. I mean, a former congressperson who is a lawyer lobbyist is not an average Joe. I mean, obviously Tom Strickland went back and managed to lose the Senate campaign twice and still was hired.
He lost it, but he didn't.
I mean, Dan Mays probably doesn't have more than a quarter in his pocket right now.
All right, let's talk Dan Mays. Why did Dan Mays win? I mean, you talked about McGinnis. Was it Dan Mays? I mean, I'm getting phone calls on the radio program saying, how dare you say that Dan Mays doesn't have a chance of winning this fall because he's the real thing? Well,
it could have been a United Nations conspiracy, but I think more it's an anti-Republican Party powers that be vote. That's what I think it was.
And I agree.
Partly anti-McGinnis. Maybe a few people really love Mays and were voting for him, but it was just, we don't throw all the bums out.
Buck tracked. I mean, he tracked mainly with Buck. I mean, if you look at county by county, he tracked mainly with Ken Buck. And
another Tea Party favorite.
Yeah, and I think the same kinds of people vote for him. I don't believe that there's much vote for Dan Mays. Most people don't, certainly in the political class, don't take him very seriously. But
let's go through this.
Yeah.
People are saying, why? Here's a guy, it's just because he's not part of the elite, he's not part of the system. Here's a guy who has defeated the odds. He won at the assembly. Now he won the other night. Why is he not taken seriously?
Well, because he doesn't act seriously. I mean, he's not serious about the issues before him. You can't just say, I can come in the first day and fire 4,000 people. You can't do it. I mean, you can say that, but you can't do it.
And by the way, let me jump on that for people who don't.
It's not a serious thing to say.
For people who don't understand, you can't do it because the Constitution doesn't allow you to do it, and somebody who involved in politics should know that.
Should know that.
Right.
And so, and once you say stuff that people interpret as being crazy, so let's look at the UN thing. Did you see the great blog post that Bartles had? Lynn Bartles had. She had a guy riding one of those share bikes and the red share bikes, and he had a bumper sticker on there that said, "My other bike is a black UN helicopter." So once you become a point of ridicule, it's very difficult to step back from that.
I'm always a point of ridicule. I got some.
That's why you haven't won very many offices.
That's true. Hey, the one I ran for, I won.
You won one, yes.
I take that back. Which is more than Dan Mays.
That was a fluke.
Why can't Dan Mays? Why don't you respect Dan Mays as a candidate?
Well, Mike's absolutely right. If he said, I would like to lay off 4,000 people immediately, but I can't because of the Constitution, so I would push this change, it's like he hasn't actually read the Constitution or looked into some of these things. That's kind of a problem. And if he also had really proven to be a genius in business, had really created a lot of jobs, had really filed his forms on time, that might have made it a little difference. But we don't see that evidence. You know, he's not a Dave Linninger who made a lot of money. He's not a Hickenlooper who made a lot of money and you can document it. We can't really see what he's done.
I want to say this, that your friend, your close friend, Tom Tancredo, has said he's crazy. So if he's crazier than my friend Tom Tancredo.
When a crazy guy calls another guy crazy, that doesn't mean the other guy's crazy.
But it means he's really crazy.
All right, let's bring in the obvious thing. With Tancredo in this race, Republicans are hosed. I mean, this whole year has been, the Republicans' mission has been to get Hickenlooper elected. And we've done it masterfully. Let's just assume for a second that Tom Tancredo woke up this morning or tomorrow morning and said, you know, I was just joking about that. We're not going to do that. Could Mays possibly win?
I don't see any way Mays could possibly win unless we suddenly discovered that the UN conspiracy really exists and Jon Hickenlooper is in charge of it. All right, well.
Trust me, I've been attacked by the bicycle Shiites. I know what it's like. It exists.
Okay, so, well, I was going to say, if you got run over by a bicycle, would that get Hickenlooper votes or not? That's a hard one to say. I don't see any way.
What if the stars align? What if I endorse Hickenlooper? We actually find out Hickenlooper's charitable contribution has all gone to the NRA or something like that because he finally releases his tax forms, and that we find out that not only did he know what was going on with the Lodo beatings, he was actually one of the gang members doing it. Then does Mays have a shot?